Actually, before I even get into the video, if you could drop a like on the video and subscribe to the channel if you're new, it would be much appreciated. I make content like this every single day, and I continue to forget to say things like this because the playoffs have me pretty hyped up. But anyways, if you could do that, that would be cool. Trae Young's balding. Trae Young's balding. Look, I said it before, and I'll say it again. We need 7 games of this series. We need to go back to Madison Square Garden. We need to see what the Hawks Arena has to offer, because people are saying, oh, it's going to be such a step down watching this game in Atlanta. And although MSG has been fantastic, let's see what Atlanta can bring first, because after this kind of opening start to the series in which it's now tied at 1 apiece after the Knicks take this game, we're going to need to see what the Hawks have to offer on their home ground, because this was another fantastic game. Another great game in which has been the best series so far, in my opinion. When you combine the atmosphere, the rivalry that's forming with Young in particular and the rest of New York, just the entirety of New York, that's a nice rivalry forming. And then the teams, they're different, but pretty evenly matched. Personally, I had the Hawks winning the series, but I thought it was going to 6 or 7. And as of right now, it probably appears like that's going to be the case. And just looking at this game, we got vintage Derrick Rose. Okay, we've stopped with that. Is that good? We've stopped saying vintage Derrick Rose, because you know when people used to say that after any time he made a layup? And we know you are, House of Highlights, those companies that are probably going to come out and say, oh, we never said vintage Derrick Rose. You said it every time he made a reverse layup. It's not vintage Derrick Rose when you're putting up 25 points a game in the playoffs and you're the best player on that team. There's nothing vintage about that. He's just good. It's that simple. And now all of a sudden, he's playing 40 minutes a night. 40 minutes a night. Thibodeau is really getting the most out of him, and D Rose was fantastic yet again. 9 of 21 from the field, but he just makes timely buckets. He just makes the right decisions. He gets to the rim. He was fantastic, but someone who was trying to prevent him getting to the rim on the other side of things for the Hawks was also fantastic. Clint Capella ended up with 5 blocks, was dominating the boards. D Rose was able to slice through on quite a few occasions and get to his spot because he's just got so many moves to his arsenal. But a big reason why the Knicks shot under 40% from the field and why guys like RJ Barrett and those kind of guys struggled was because of Capella. And when he wasn't blocking shots, he was at least altering those shots. So he had a fantastic game as well on both ends of the floor. And then you had the matchup of the point guards. I mentioned D Rose, another fantastic game. He's been great in this series, the best player for the Knicks as of right now. That's not slander at Julius Randle, it's just a fact. He's just been the best player. He's been playing fantastically. And on the other end, Young was also great, had another fantastic game. You just can't look at him and say he's not an all-star, he's not a star-level player. Because when he was on the court, the Hawks had a +5. They left him on the bench for too long in that third quarter, in that fourth quarter, because the game was getting out of hand, and you could just see the Hawks had absolutely no offense with him on the bench. When he came back in, instant offense. They started double teaming him. They started collapsing on him late in the game, and he was finding Hunter and Bogdanovic, who just couldn't make a shot towards the end, particularly Bogdanovic. Huge fan of Bogdanovic. I've made it very clear before, and I think he's having an excellent season, like a near all-star player over the last couple of months, but he couldn't hit anything. He could not hit anything. He was taking difficult shots. It's not like they were all open shots. He was coming off screens, off movement, but 2 of 13 from 3. It was a rough game for Bogdanovic. I guess that's what happens with shooters. Every now and then, you're going to have one of these games, and unfortunately, this was the game for the Hawks because, yeah, Bogey was not there tonight. He was not there tonight. In the first half, you're like, this could be a big Bogey performance, and then he ends up hitting 2 of 13 and just missing about 10 threes in a row. In general, everyone else on the Hawks' offense was incredibly rough to watch. Gallinari is just out there doing cardio. He's out there doing cardio. Because at least with guys like Bogdanovic, playing good defense, at least harassing guys like Randall, blocking shots, getting in the way of things. You got the likes of Hunter. Those guys at least are playing good, competent defense. Gallinari, what's he doing out there? Like, I'm genuinely curious. What was Gallinari doing out there? He made like a couple of extra passes that were okay. He made 2 shots. He wasn't moving. He committed like 3 fouls that were just sloppy fouls. What was he actually doing out there? I'm genuinely curious because he can't move. The guy cannot move laterally, and he's just getting blown by on every single occasion. He's fouling dumb fouls. He can't shoot. He's bad. He's bad. He's been a bad playoff performer in his career. and it didn't stop here because this was a rough game for Gallinari. And although guys like Bogdanovic, as I mentioned, also had rough games, Gallinari just doesn't contribute anything outside of scoring. So when he can't shoot the ball like he couldn't tonight, it's rough, particularly when he had to play 30 minutes because John Collins was in foul trouble and ended the night with 0 points, 0 assists. Yeah, outside of Trae, the offense was pretty much awful because Lou Will coming off the bench as well didn't create much. There just wasn't anything, and that's why the Knicks were able to wrestle the lead away from the Hawks and extend that lead significantly with Young on the bench because they're going to go as Young goes. They're going to go as Bogdanovic goes. Those are the two best offensive players on this team. And unfortunately, the gap is pretty wide. You've got Hunter as well, but he's still not quite where he was at the start of the season. So he's still working back into it, and it's not exactly the team that you have a good chance to work back into it against because the Knicks are a fantastic defense. And we've got to give them credit because, like I mentioned, guys like Gallinari can't make shots, but the Knicks are making it very difficult for them. They made it very difficult for them. The only guy that's consistently getting to his spot and consistently creating looks is Young. But aside from that, the Knicks defense, you've got Bullock playing fantastically on the defensive end of the floor and knocking down threes. He's just been such a good acquisition. I watched him in Detroit. I always rated him highly. He's always been a very solid player. That it didn't work out his couple of years after he left Detroit when he went to the Lakers and then he was at the Knicks. I don't exactly know his career path after that. But now that he's found his spot on this team over the last year, he's been great all year long. And this game, he was fantastic as well. Randall ended up with 5 of 16. The numbers aren't great. 4 turnovers. The first half was rough. It was rough. It looked like he was just continuing on from last game. But in the end, he made timely plays, made a couple of timely threes, made some nice passes, took on the double team on a couple of occasions, played some good defense as well, switched on to Trae Young, did the little things. Again, his shot wasn't really falling. He hasn't been the guy that we thought he would be considering how he dominated the Hawks in the regular season. But if he can continue to do the little things, and eventually, I do have faith his shot will start falling. You can look at the box score and say he was bad. I disagree. I think he was okay. He needs to be better, I think. I don't think you can look at this game and say, oh, he was fantastic. But he did the right things, and he made the right plays, and he helped this team win, which ultimately is his job. Oh, and shout out to Taj Gibson. This guy's 45 years old and is just making an impact. I mean, a plus 23, which I'm just seeing right now. I didn't think it was that high, but I genuinely realized he was on the floor and making a huge impact, so it doesn't particularly surprise me because he's rebounding, blocking shots, altering shots, getting in the way, just making timely plays, timely dunks, being in the right spot at the right time, veteran plays on both ends of the floor. He just had a really, really good game. Obi Toppin played some decent minutes as well. In general, the Knicks had a pretty Knicks game where they just prevented the other team from shooting the ball well due to their rotations, their ability to smother and contest every single shot. And then on the offensive end of the floor, it wasn't exactly the most pretty way of playing, but you had Derrick Rose, who was able to break down the defense and get to 26 points. Randall was able to make a couple of timely buckets, and Bullock was able to knock down threes. All of this mixed in with the crowd, which is making this series what it is right now, because the MSG crowd is making this series 10 times better than I even thought it was going to be. Because I looked at the matchup on paper, and this was already the series I was looking forward to the most. And now you mix in what the crowd is doing with their chanting and just their ability to get involved in the game, and it just makes it so much better. I mean, you've got the Michael Jordan of the bench mob as well, living up to this crowd. You've got Theo Pinson on the bench. That's not even disrespect. I genuinely respect someone like Pinson who can make such an impact without touching the floor. Again, I'm genuinely not being disrespectful. It sounds disrespectful, but just the way he gets involved in the game and is so hyped, I genuinely like watching things like that. So it's cool to see Pinson, the Michael Jordan of the bench mob. He has been for years, and it's time we put some respect on his name, because the way he's going out there and just hyping up the team and hyping up the crowd deserves some respect as well. He's making an impact without stepping foot on the court, and it's not a ton of people can do that. Anything else worth noting? The Hawks have been a fantastic team at home all season long, particularly recently. They're going to come home and look to take a 3-1 lead. I think they're probably going to have to look to play Trae and Bogdanovic and the starters, Capella, close to 40 minutes. I don't know what their physios and stuff are saying, and I actually respect physios because I've worked with them before, and I think that they do an important job, and sometimes injury prevention is actually key with minutes and stuff like that. But they're going to have to look to start playing someone like that 40 minutes, because those 5 minutes, that 6-minute stretch where he was off the floor in the third and fourth quarter, changed the game completely, and it looks like it's going to continue changing the game because Lou Will had that nice stretch of play last game. Generally, he's not been a fantastic playoff performer. Gallinari, neither. Tony Snell can make shots, but he's not going to create shots. Kevin Huerter, decent off the bench as well. But just their bench unit in general, there's just not enough shot creation. In general, their team doesn't have enough shot creation without Trae, which is what makes what he's doing so impressive, but you're going to have to start racking up those minutes. If Rose can play 40 minutes, I think Trae can play 40 minutes. Another fantastic game. This series looks like it's going to go down to the wire, and I'm here for it because it's going back to Atlanta, and we're going to see what the Atlanta crowd has to offer because MSG has just put on a show, and the series is tied at 1-1. What else do I have to say? If you enjoyed the video, drop a like on it, subscribe to the channel. If you're new, have a good day. I'll catch you next time. Bye.